The moment Billy Butcher finally collapsed, I realized we were not just watching the ending of a television show, we were witnessing the death of an entire era of superhero storytelling. After 7 brutal years filled with betrayal, bloodshed, political chaos, and unforgettable madness, The Boys has officially closed its final chapter. Yet the strangest part is that this ending does not feel completely final. It feels like the silence that comes right before another explosion. Every major character has been left standing at a different crossroads, and the future of this universe now feels more unpredictable than ever before. Some stories have been buried forever, while others are quietly preparing for a dangerous rebirth behind the scenes. And honestly, that is exactly what makes this finale so fascinating. The show never wanted to give us a clean victory or a comforting goodbye. Instead, it left us with scars, unanswered questions, and the terrifying possibility that the cycle may start all over again. To truly understand where this universe could go next, we need to look carefully at every surviving player, every broken relationship, and every hidden plan left behind after the smoke finally cleared. Because beneath all the chaos, the final season secretly planted the seeds for an entirely new phase of the Boys universe. And obviously, the first person we need to talk about is William Butcher himself, the man whose hatred built this entire story from the ground up. His ending feels absolutely definitive. Butcher is dead, and unlike most comic book characters, this death actually carries weight because there is no believable reason left for him to return. From the very first episode until his final breath, he dedicated every ounce of his existence to destroying Homelander and wiping out the soups responsible for poisoning the world around him. What makes his journey unforgettable is not simply the fact that he succeeded, but the savage and reckless way he achieved it. Homelander was never just another villain. He was practically a god hiding behind a smile, a walking nightmare capable of tearing apart entire cities without hesitation. Defeating someone like that should have felt impossible, yet Butcher managed to do it through pure rage, desperation, and sacrifice. And if you compare this ending to the original comic storyline, the difference becomes even more interesting. In the comics, Black Noir is secretly Homelander's clone and ultimately kills him before Butcher finishes Noir himself. But the show completely abandoned that route, choosing instead to make Butcher the center of the final destruction. That single decision permanently transformed him into the tragic heart of this universe. At the same time, one character who surprised me more than anyone else was Mother's Milk. Going into the finale, I genuinely believed he would become another casualty of Butcher's obsession, especially because the show repeatedly hinted that nobody involved in this war would escape untouched. Yet somehow Mother's Milk survived the chaos and managed to return to a quieter version of his old life. That outcome matters because his journey was always different from the others. While Butcher operated through fury, Mother's Milk constantly struggled between revenge and responsibility. He wanted justice, but he also wanted stability, family, and peace, even when the world around him refused to allow any of those things. Throughout the series, we watched him lose hope repeatedly, yet he still kept moving forward, even when death seemed unavoidable. In the comics, his fate is far darker because after Homelander dies, Butcher completely loses control and decides that every single person connected to Compound Phi must be eliminated, including his own allies. Mother's Milk becomes one of the victims of that paranoia. The show deliberately avoided that tragedy, and honestly, I think there is a bigger reason behind it. Keeping him alive creates opportunities for future stories, especially if Vought Rising decides to explore his unresolved history with Soldier Boy. Their rivalry still feels unfinished, and this universe rarely leaves unfinished business untouched for long. Then there is Kimiko, who may have quietly become the most dangerous person left alive in this entire universe. After everything that happened, she now represents something even more valuable than raw strength. She represents control over power itself. The ability to permanently remove a soup's abilities changes the balance of this world completely, and that makes her incredibly important moving forward. What makes her situation even more emotional is the loneliness surrounding her future. After losing one of the people closest to her, she now carries the burden of surviving while everyone around her continues disappearing. Yet despite that pain, she keeps moving forward, almost like she understands that the war is not truly over. And honestly, she may be right. Vought is never going to stop creating new soups because power and profit are still the company's entire foundation. As long as Compound Vi exists, new monsters will continue appearing. That means Kimiko could become the ultimate weapon against future threats, especially if another corrupt version of Homelander ever rises again. I would not be shocked at all if upcoming projects bring her back into the spotlight because she feels too important to abandon permanently. In many ways, she has become the living insurance policy of this franchise. Whenever things spiral out of control again, Kimiko is the kind of character capable of changing the entire game within seconds, and the creators definitely know that. Meanwhile, Huey and Starlight finally achieved something that almost nobody expected from this story: peace. After years of trauma, manipulation, and constant fear, both characters have somehow managed to settle into a relatively normal life together. They are not married, and the show intentionally avoids turning their relationship into a fairy tale ending. But there is still something surprisingly comforting about seeing them escape the endless cycle of violence. Huey even received an opportunity to lead a government task force designed to monitor soups more effectively, yet he rejected the offer and chose a smaller, quieter existence instead. At first, that decision sounds strange because he spent years fighting to make the world safer, but if you really think about it, Huey never wanted power or status. He always represented the ordinary person trapped inside extraordinary chaos. Choosing a simple life feels completely true to his character, but the truly interesting detail here is their future child. The show quietly hints that their baby could eventually inherit powers naturally, and that possibility changes everything. We have already seen how dangerous naturally born soups can become through Ryan's story. Children raised with abilities often struggle emotionally because they never experience normal boundaries. So even though Huey and Starlight currently appear safe, the writers clearly left a massive door open for future conflicts through the next generation. And honestly, that hidden setup might become one of the franchise's most important storylines later. Speaking of Ryan, his conclusion may actually be the most unexpected twist in the entire finale, because the boy once feared as the future Homelander has now become completely normal. His powers are gone, and surprisingly, he seems genuinely happy about losing them. That emotional detail says everything about how deeply the burden of those abilities affected him throughout the series. For years, Ryan lived under impossible pressure. Some people wanted him to become humanity's savior, while others feared he would become an even worse version of his father. He never truly had the freedom to simply exist as a child. Now, for the first time, he can experience ordinary life without constantly worrying about destroying someone accidentally. He can go to school, make friends, and grow up outside the shadow of Homelander's legacy. But while Ryan's story appears peaceful on the surface, another far more dangerous player is already stepping into control behind the scenes: Stan Edgar. This is where the future becomes terrifying again. Before dying, Butcher secretly contaminated Vought's water supply with the anti-soup virus, and there is absolutely no chance that a mastermind like Edgar would fail to investigate something that important. Once he discovers the virus completely, he will possess both the ability to create soups and the ability to destroy them whenever necessary. That level of control is far scarier than Homelander's chaotic violence because Edgar operates through precision, patience, and strategy rather than emotion. And honestly, the more I think about Stan Edgar's position, the more convinced I become that he may secretly emerge as the true winner of this entire story. Homelander ruled through fear, ego, and uncontrollable rage, which eventually made him impossible to manage. Edgar, on the other hand, understands systems, branding, and long-term manipulation better than anyone else in this universe. If he gains access to both the virus and its possible cure, he can rebuild Vought from the ground up while ensuring another Homelander never rises again. Imagine a future where every new member of the Seven carries hidden implants, tracking systems, or built-in weaknesses designed to keep them obedient forever. That possibility sounds horrifying, yet it also feels exactly like the kind of corporate evolution this universe would explore next. Instead of pretending soups are gods, Edgar may transform them into fully controlled products. And from a public relations perspective, he could easily spin the previous disaster into a redemption narrative for Vought itself. The company would present itself as humanity's protector against dangerous superhumans while secretly continuing the exact same cycle behind closed doors. What makes this even more interesting is the possible rise of Zoe, Victoria Newman's daughter. If Vought needs a new public face for the next generation, Zoe could become the perfect candidate because she represents both innocence and hidden danger simultaneously. The finale quietly positions several younger characters near the center of the board, and that usually means the franchise is preparing for another long game, rather than a permanent ending. That brings us directly to the future of the franchise itself, because despite all the emotional finality surrounding the main series, Amazon clearly has no intention of abandoning this universe completely. The biggest mystery right now revolves around which spin-off will successfully carry the torch forward. Gen V initially looked like the strongest candidate because it expanded the world naturally through younger characters dealing with the terrifying realities of soup culture. But after production complications and cancellation rumors, its future suddenly feels uncertain, leaving many storylines suspended in midair. That uncertainty creates both disappointment and opportunity because it forces the franchise to rethink its direction carefully. At the same time, another project quietly gaining attention is The Boys, Mexico. And honestly, this concept could become far more interesting than people expect. One of the smartest things The Boys ever did was show how deeply Vought's influence spread across politics, entertainment, and global business. Exploring the aftermath of the chaos through Mexico's perspective opens the door to entirely different social tensions, regional conflicts, and underground experiments involving Compound V. We could witness how another branch of Vought operated away from American oversight, potentially revealing darker secrets the main series never touched. More importantly, it allows the universe to feel larger again instead of simply recycling familiar characters repeatedly. Expanding internationally gives the franchise fresh energy, new villains, and a completely different atmosphere, while still preserving the brutal identity fans expect from The Boys. But if there is one project carrying the heaviest expectations right now, it is definitely Vought Rising, because this series has the potential to completely redefine everything we thought we understood about the origins of this universe. Instead of continuing forward immediately, the story plans to travel backward into Vought's earliest years, exploring the dangerous rise of Soldier Boy, Stormfront, back when she operated as Liberty and the infamous Payback Team during their violent prime. And honestly, this idea sounds perfect for The Boys because the franchise has always been strongest when exposing the ugly truths hidden beneath patriotic mythology. We already know Vought built its empire through lies, propaganda, and ruthless exploitation, but seeing that corruption developed firsthand could make the entire universe feel even darker in retrospect. The most exciting detail is the rumor that the show will function partly as a murder mystery, which creates endless possibilities for betrayal, secret experiments, and political conspiracies buried beneath the company's public image. Soldier Boy alone brings enough instability to carry an entire series because his personality mixes charisma, insecurity, and brutality in ways that constantly create tension. Add Stormfront's manipulative ideology into that environment, and suddenly, Vought Rising starts looking less like a simple prequel and more like the foundation for the franchise's next major phase. If executed properly, it could easily become the most disturbing chapter in the Boys universe so far. And honestly, that possibility feels incredibly exciting. At the end of the day, that is probably the most important thing to understand about The Boys. Even though the main story has officially ended, this universe still feels dangerously alive. Modern streaming platforms rarely allow successful franchises to disappear forever, especially ones capable of generating this level of discussion, controversy, and emotional investment. Eventually, there will come a moment when studios begin searching desperately for another massive cultural phenomenon, and when that happens, reviving The Boys in some form will become almost inevitable. Maybe it arrives through a completely new generation of soups. Maybe someone discovers hidden experiments connected to Homelander. Maybe Ryan's peaceful life eventually collapses. Or maybe Vought itself evolves into something even more terrifying than before. The point is that this world was designed to keep mutating. That is why the finale works so well emotionally. It gives enough closure to satisfy the audience while still leaving several dangerous threads hanging in the background, waiting for someone to pull them loose again years later. And honestly, I would not bet against this franchise returning stronger than ever once enough time passes. Stories this big never truly stay buried. They disappear quietly, rebuild themselves in darkness, and then explode back onto our screens when nobody expects them anymore. So for now, the final page may have turned, but the universe behind it still feels far from finished. Like, share, and subscribe if you want more movie news like this. What really stays with me after this finale is how cleverly the writers balance destruction with possibility. They close the emotional journeys that absolutely needed closure, especially Butcher's, while quietly protecting enough surviving pieces to continue expanding the universe later without feeling forced. That is an incredibly difficult thing for any franchise to achieve. Most finales either leave too many unanswered questions or explain everything until the mystery disappears. The Boys somehow avoided both extremes. Even the smaller details feel intentional now, from abandoned research facilities to surviving political connections and hidden Compound V samples that could still exist somewhere beyond public knowledge. Every loose thread feels dangerous. Every survivor feels important. And that lingering uncertainty is exactly why fans are going to keep discussing this ending for years.